All right. Let's do it. All right, folks, it is finally here, the premiere of Series 11 of Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker's first adventure, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Now, before I get too much into the specifics of it, I want to start by acknowledging the fact that first adventures for doctors usually are okay. I mean, let's be honest, because a lot of people, for good or for ill, are going to put a lot of pressure on this specific episode and put a lot of weight on it. But look, let's be honest, especially if we restrict it to the modern era, I would argue that only Matt Smith had to really knock it out of the park first adventure. Rose, which was the first time we saw Eccleston's Doctor, was good enough, but it wasn't phenomenal. There's a lot that was very off about it. Tennant's first adventure, The Christmas Invasion, it's okay. When he's in it, it's pretty good. 11th Hour is great. And then Deep Breath is decent. But again, not even close to being the best work that we would get from the character or from the writers for that matter. So I think there is going to be an undue amount of pressure being put onto this episode, which it just doesn't deserve, shouldn't get, but is going to be what happens regardless, because that's the culture at this point. So, having said that, how is it? It's pretty good. I think I'm going to be upfront about this. I'm not 100% on with Jodie Whittaker yet. That said, I'm not always immediately in tune with the doctors. Some of them get me right off. Eccleston got me right off. Smith got me right off. Tennant mostly had me, and then he picked up after that. Capaldi, honestly, I didn't start loving him till his second series on the show. So, it can take more than one go. So with Whittaker, I think the first thing to me is I'm already feeling what I had been afraid of before, which is that this is too many characters. And because I think back to the first adventure for a Doctor that I love, which is 11th Hour. And a big part of, I think, why that one is better, honestly, than all the rest of the others is that it does a full and proper focus on the Doctor. Honestly, he is in, I think, almost every scene in that episode. The focus is on him, even as it's introducing new companions and a new setting and all this stuff. It's still filtering it through him. We are focused on him. It's all about him. Whereas here they do the more typical thing, which is that, okay, well, here's a bit of these companions. Here's some setting. Here's some this. Oh, look, there's the Doctor. She turned up. And now here's a bit more of the, and it's spreading it out across the whole cast, which it's not an invalid way to do it, especially if you want to sort of endear the companions to us. But for me, I want to know this Doctor. I wanted a much bigger emphasis. I wanted a much bigger laser focus. I wanted a much bigger showcase for the Doctor than I feel like I got out of this episode. As far as, when she was the focus and she had her moments, it's good so far. I've got no complaints about it. There is an interesting thing, though. I am finding I am having to adjust my brain a little bit. And I don't know, well, I'll admit, I don't know if this happened for anyone else, but I suspect even if it did, a lot of people aren't going to admit to this. But to be blunt about it, there's a number of things that are standard for Doctor Who that felt a little off now that it was a woman. And I'm going to cite a specific example so people can try and get what I'm talking about. Because I'm not talking about she comes in and saves the day and she's technically proficient. No, that's fine. What I mean is something like her getting her new outfit. So when it was pointed out by, I think it was Yaz, you've got to get out of those clothes. And, it then cuts to, outside of a changing room in a store. Like, my gut instincts was like, oh, for God's sakes, is this a dressing montage? Like, how ridiculous? Because, like, those things annoy me. And they're a cliche in female-centric entertainment. But I had to step back and go, wait, the Doctor always has a very tacked-on way of getting their new outfit. It just kind of, it gets inserted somewhere, usually somewhat awkwardly. And this is not really any different than that, but it felt different, and it felt more derivative somehow, because women having clothing, a new set of clothing being a big deal is something that carries, in a weird way, a different kind of baggage. So, but again, and I've said this before about the baggage involved with the Doctor becoming a woman, that's not a fault of the show. It's baggage that I have that I need to decouple this crap. Because as soon as I realized, because I had that initial thought, and that was a gut reaction, and then I thought, well, no, because the Doctor always has these sorts of moments, with getting a new outfit and whatnot, and then sort of honestly being a little bit embarrassed, being a little bit ashamed that, like, why is that going on? But I still want to own up to it. It's still strange for me. I am happy that Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor. I'm excited for what happens. But look, it's weird. It's going to take some getting used to. I suspect in a way that for many fans who got in on New Who and had never done classic, probably having the Doctor be as old as Capaldi was probably something that was weird to them. Seemed weird and seemed wrong. So, I think there is those kinds of adjustments to be made, and I expect that I'll make them. As far as plot goes for this one, it's solid. You generally don't get your amazing plots in your opening episodes because you've got so much crap to establish, because you've got to establish the Doctor and the companions and all that. Coming back to the companions, I don't dislike any of them, but I am left thinking, do we need all three? And I'm already annoyed at seeing or at least feeling like I'm seeing the Doctor's time cut down because we have to make time for 3 other people. Well, actually, previously it was 4 other people, but they got rid of someone who was kind of part of the group. Not like that's a spoiler or anything, because it's not like someone who was marketed as being a companion is like, wait, they didn't make it. Like, no, it was a superfluous character. But sort of, look, I'm going to start getting into specifics and spoilers a little bit. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, which at this point you should have. I don't even have a watch on. I don't know why I did that. At this point you should have, by the time this video goes up. So, whatever. So, Grace, Graham's wife, and Ryan's, grandmother dying, it kind of bugged me. It kind of, I had hoped for a more, kind of a dynamic relationship where, maybe she decides to hold down the fort, but she encourages him to go out on an adventure, which I had that thought. I thought maybe that could be a real interesting dynamic, and it's not going to happen. Instead, she's just dead. So instead, they just remove the reason that 2 out of 3 of those characters would have to ever want to come back, which, it serves a practical function, sure. It will help avoid the domestic, we got to keep going back to Earth to check in with loved ones thing, which tends to annoy me. So, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it struck me as the really cheap solution. That said, I do kind of like the dynamic of internally between the 3 companions. I like that they already know each other, and they kind of have a little bit of an established thing. But also, something that has room for growth, because, you've got Ryan and Yaz who knew each other from way back, but obviously haven't been caught up in a while. And obviously Graham and his relationship with Ryan is a little bit weird for a number of reasons. So, they have an established dynamic, but there's also room for growth. And I think that has a lot of promise in it. The thing that we were dealing with, with the hunter with the teeth, that's kind of an unsettling thing. Like the teeth, honestly, it was, and I mean that in a good way. And his little electro tentacle thing, which also was on its initial reveal was impressively unsettling because it was so dark. You just sort of see these tentacles coming through this door and this lightning arcing. It's like, what the hell is that? Like at first it was like, that's like Cthulhu stuff. What is going on there? So, design on these things was pretty good, was pretty interesting. The backstory and motivation on them was functional. Got the job done. And, I mean, I guess that's kind of my feeling about this episode overall. It's not bad. There are things that I wish that it did that it didn't do, or things that I wish were a little bit different from what it did, but it gets the job done. It establishes the Doctor. It establishes, these companions. It ends on a odd kind of cliffhanger for me. Like I don't like the moment it ends on. Like I'll say that flatly. That I didn't like. I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of very forced sort of cliffhanger that just bugs me. It's like, oh, they're in a deadly situation. Like, yeah, and they're all going to be fine within 20 seconds at the start of the next episode. Like, that always annoys me. I mean, I like that the Doctor screwed up. I like that the Doctor is still capable of screwing up. That's something I like and appreciate, but I don't like that as an ending moment. The sonic screwdriver, the new sonic screwdriver, it's cool looking. I like the orange glow. I think that's a nice distinct look to it. And I do like that. And I kind of like the idea that she puts it. I think the moment where I smiled the biggest was where she picked up the spoon, just kind of stared at it for a minute, because I know it seems like nobody else likes Robots of Sherwood other than me, but I like that episode, and I love I'm the Doctor and this is my spoon. That is one of my favorite moments from earlier Capaldi episodes. Like, I love that so much. And it felt like just taking a moment like, oh, the spoon. And I liked that quite a bit. So I liked, her being resourceful and throwing stuff together and getting things going. She's a little bit scatterbrained. She seems to be channeling a little bit of Smith's sort of this, wait, stop. Well, I mean, not just Smith. Tennant did that too. I mean, sort of the fast talking that a lot of the Doctors have had, and a little bit scattershot. Now we'll see if that holds, because sometimes you can't always count on the first episode the way the Doctor is for that to hold, because you've always got post-regeneration wonkiness, and plus, like, stepping out of the narrative, the actor's going to become more acclimated to the part as they go along. So, we'll see if that becomes a fixed part of the characterization of the Doctor presently, or if she is going to kind of settle a little bit more. Yeah, that's kind of like I wish I could see the next episode right away, because I feel like I didn't come away feeling like I know who this Doctor is yet. Which again, to be fair, first post-regeneration episode, often the Doctor doesn't know completely who they are yet. But I do feel like usually I have more of a grip on it than this. Tennant would had his, no second chances, I'm that kind of man moment. And Matt Smith, just settling on the bow tie. Or Capaldi with his attack eyebrows. And I feel like Whittaker didn't have that kind of moment. Something that is like the first firm pull of what makes this Doctor different. And I feel like I didn't get that yet. So I'm going to be watching for that. I think I'll wrap it up there. I mean, overall, it's good. It's good. It's solid. I'm not blown away by really any of it yet. But there really was nothing that I thought was particularly bad. So I consider it solid. It's definitely something that can be built on in terms of the characters, the Doctor, the companions, all of it, really. And I really want to see where it goes, but I'm not sold on this Doctor yet, which again is not a damning thing. It can take a little bit of time with some of these Doctors sometimes. They don't always work immediately. I mean, go back and, I like Sylvester McCoy a lot. Go back and watch some of his earliest episodes. It's rough going. So, in the age of instantaneous feedback and instantaneous opinions, we're very quick to leap to a final conclusion of, therefore, this sucks. Like, no, give it some time to breathe. But I'm still enjoying her. I haven't completely hooked in yet. I'm hoping to, though. So we'll see. So that's going to wrap it up for me, folks. The Woman Who Fell to Earth. What did you think about it? And even if your opinion on it was negative, please keep the comments at least politely worded. I know that there's still a lot of strong opinions about the direction of Doctor Who as a show. So, express whatever you want, but no personal attacks. Not on me, not on the people involved. Just don't do that, okay? Because I'll delete it. So whatever your thoughts are within those parameters, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a whole bunch of stuff to do because there's buttons and there's links and all those sorts of things. There's a link to the Patreon if you feel like supporting me that way. So that's going to wrap it up for this one, folks. I'll be back to do the next one next Monday. I don't know. I'll probably still do maybe my Doctor Who Classic review and my Big Finish review for the month. Still on Sundays, but I'm not going to have always Doctor Who content on Sunday for as long as I'm doing these on the Mondays that follow. So that'll wrap it up for now. And until next time, folks, remember, you're the council, and I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.